Alright, in this chapter I'm gonna make something clear. I don't read the curses. I've been editing them out a little bit up to this point, but in this chapter they are a more meaningful part of the story, and I'm going to be stating when a certain character uses them a lot. Just from then on, everything he says, he's speaking terribly. That being said, I have permission from the author to read this with that editation change. Here we go. Hold up. Was there something else I had to say? Anyway, here we go. The pieces lie where they fell. By Evil Humor. Chapter 7. Vital, Nightblade, Page Turner, Windbreaker, Vix-Lei, and Rex. Part 1. Vital. The Xvital let out a sigh, rubbing her eyes with her hands and scratching the back of her head with her tail hand. It had been a dull day of reading through all these dusty and dry tomes, but she had been seen and had built up the groundwork for her credibility for being a nice person. So, when the time came to make the switch for those scrolls, Vital would be leaving Canterlot a lot richer without anyone giving her so much as a second glance. And then it would be enjoying the frontiers as a rich single Awizotalis for a long time, if the rumbling in the markets were right on the price of these old scrolls. "Excuse me, madam." The elderly griffin matron, hush-tone, came up from behind her. "Oh, hello, matron." Vital tipped her head politely, feeling a tiny stab of guilt at eventually ripping off this kind, grandmotherly griffin that had made it her business to send tea over to Vital's table every few hours, although not that bad. "How can I help you?" "It's the other way around, dear." The griffin smiled at her, reaching to take the empty cup away. "While the Grand Library is still open for a few more hours, you have been here all day, and the Honor Festival is beginning tonight. A young lady like yourself shouldn't be cooped up in here. Take it from me, you only seek solace in the Grand Library after you have been spurned by love." With that unintentional jab, Vital felt her face flush, and found herself agreeing. "Woe to anyone that ignores the advice of those more wise," she said, getting up to stretch properly, before gathering her belongings. "I do believe I will return to my studies after the Honor Festival." "I would turn you away in any case." She clicked her beak, guiding Vital out of her small, isolated seclusion towards the general library. "I had seen one of my wards go off on a date with her cult friend, and I do hope they don't come back until tomorrow night." The old griffin smirked, enjoying a rather pointed look with Vital. The goddesses know it would do that cult some good to enjoy himself, as it were. Blushing, she remembered the cult that the matron was speaking of, and was given unpleasant images of the Nox pony enjoying himself. "One could hope," Vital said, as they reached the front doors of the library. "Thank you for all the tea today, Matron Tone." "You are most welcome, dear, and don't be too timid to find yourself some pony tonight." The griffin clicked her beak with a sly smirk crafted on it, before pushing her out of the door. Standing shocked at how this old griffin was acting, Vital simply snickered to herself before starting to make her way to the inn she had paid for long in advance, and did her best to enjoy the creeping night. Part 2. Nightblade. It was almost the end of the day, with the crowd in front of the stage growing larger, and those on the stage doing their best to remain dignified. Representing the first three tribes were Decorated Page, the unicorn director of the academy, Raindrop, the assistant captain of the weather management team of Canterlot, and Shining Apple of the Apple clan. As it had been since the time of King Blueblood, there was no official clarification of which tribe of the three were actually the first tribe, as to promote unity and end tribalism. Next to the three was an empty space for the changeling leader, always there, as if their leader actually came to the festival, or if they even existed anymore. Along to the Next to the empty space was delighted Jim, the assistant governor of the Crystal Dominance for the 5th tribe, and Princess Flotsam of Atlantria for the 6th tribe. Knight eyed them with indifference, as his job was nearly done here. As soon as the sun sat, and the office of the Public Honor Festival, the official of the Public Honor Festival, a rather dull pony named Windbag, took over, he would be free to enjoy the festival with Page Turner, who was doing her best to distract him by using her magic to tickle his sides. Flashing a smile at her, with the beautiful new necklace around her neck, Nightblade let out a tired sigh as the sun finally set, if how the pony on the microphone, whose sole role tonight was to tell them when the sun sat, was any way to judge. Stepping forwards to the microphone, Windbag cleared his throat. My friends, before we begin this honor festival, I must thank young Knight for his and his family's generous contributions, to which, without the dedication of the Blade family, this festival would not be as grand as it is, he snipped, looking directly at Knight while enjoying the applause of the crowd. Tonight, however, this is a special honor festival, my friends, for this is the 1,000-year anniversary of the day when we lost our goddesses, Celestia and Luna, and our dear virtues, to the vile changeling Chrysalis, who went against the tribes and Equestria, and dared to attack the demigoddess Mia Mora Cadenza on her wedding. Due to that deranged changeling, the goddesses Celestia and Luna were forced to leave us. Mia Mora Cadenza, the demigoddess of love, had her wedding annulled, and the virtues were slain in a cowardly manner, while the foul changeling did not have the courage to perish in her suicide attack against our fair and just nation. Windbag paused, collecting himself, and probably catching his breath. That was a long speech. Of course, it was our King Blueblood the First who brought Equestria back into order and peace to the tribes by laying low the vile Chrysalis and destroying her control over the 4th tribe and bringing them home. But alas, her spawn continues its shadow rule even to this day. It is our hope that one day this miscreant will be brought to justice, and all the tribes would be as one. Windbag paused again, looking at the crowd and smiling. But enough of our lacking cousins, my dear friends. This is a time of joy and merriment, to honor the days long past. Good sirs, madams, Windbag, proving his name and talent emblem was accurate, barely waited for the representatives of the tribes to show their approval before turning to face the crowd again. With that, I call for this honor festival to begin. Rolling his eyes, Knight turned to face Page Turner, saying, Well, that was a terrible speech. That's when he noticed he was alone. Looking around, he saw a stage hoof trot up to him. Your mare friend said she wanted some air, sir, he said. Nodding his head, he was left wondering how he would find her, when Knight slapped his forehead. Holding his necklace in his hoof, he activated the spell and went off to find Page Turner, taking to the air so he could spot the yellow unicorn. Part 4. Page Turner. Page Turner giggled to herself as she tickled Knight's side again, causing her colt to squirm as he tried to stand at attention, while a stallion climbed onto the stage, which was her signal that she had to behave herself. She began to tune out the stallion, with his speech being less about the virtues and goddesses, and more about being another bigoted hate speech against the changelings. Rolling her eyes, she turned to wander away, telling a nearby stage hoof to inform Knight that she was going to try and enjoy herself. keyword being try, as the ponies milling about were none too friendly, pushing and shoving as they wanted to get to a stall that caught their eye. Working with the crowd, Paige found herself on the far edge of the festival with very few ponies around her. She let out a sigh, breathing in the cold mountain air. If she could fly, she imagined that she would have the most amazing view of Canterlot right now. Looking upwards, she could spot the few couples on the clouds, as well as those being towed around in carriages, and wondered if she could get Night to fly for her. "Hey, what do you think you're doing, Buggy?" A voice snapped her out of her daydreaming, her heart racing as she saw half a dozen or so ponies skulking in the alleyway, with a really disheveled unicorn at the center of the group, staring down at a huddled black mass. Oh, by the elders, it was a changeling nymph! With a rough shove that sent the changeling into the side of the building, the lead pony of the gang sneered at the poor nymph, shaking in fear. "I asked you a question, Buggy," he snapped, brandishing a switchblade that matched his talent emblem, and held it close to the nymph. "Because I think that you're one of those Buggy Queen's countless broods that are holding back unity for Equestria. Now ain't that a shame, that because of this selfish Buggy here refuses to do what's proper, we can't do the goddesses proper honor, and I don't think that's what they want. Right, boys?" I'm taking this moment to inform you he's the character that keeps swearing. There was a chortle of agreement from his yes-stallions and yes-mare, with some rather vicious suggestions being bantered about, which Sharp-Point, as Paige learned his name by the lowlifes egging him on, seemed to drink in. The nymph tried to say something, but was knocked to the ground by a punch to the face by Sharp-Point for daring to speak back. "That's enough," Paige snapped, pulling her magic to herself as she stormed forwards. "Leave her alone." She zapped a bolt of magic across the air, causing Sharp-Point to pull back. "Oi! What's that about, you pinhead?" Sharp-Point shouted at her, pointing his switchblade at her, with his ponies crowding behind him. "What are you, some buggy lover?" "What I am is a decent pony." Paige narrowed her eyes, keeping her attention half focused on the nymph, and half focused on the thug, stalking forwards. What kind of colt threatens a helpless nymph with a bunch of ponies to back him up? "The kind that doesn't like noisy people mouthing off," Sharp-Point snarled. "Now get out of my way, or else, because there's only one of you and a whole lot more of me and my ponies. So go be a buggy lover somewhere else, and let us get to work making them goddess proud." Outraged at this crude thug, Paige was about to respond when she heard a flap of wings and something land beside her. "Count again, idiot," the winged individual with a familiar voice snapped. "And for the record, I don't care about changelings, but like her, I have actual morals." Flashing a smile at the griffin she met this afternoon, Paige felt a bit relieved that she was stopped from following what her instincts told her to do, before returning her attention to Sharp-Point. Part 4? Windbreaker. He had wanted to drink away all the nonsense this morning, but Windbreaker couldn't bring himself to do so. Half because he was a bit too annoyed at the whole matter, and half because the rules against intoxication would end up with him spending some time in jail. Instead, he spent the entire time getting buzzed, as well as mulling over where he could go next to find a job to help pay down his debt, as well as resupply his stock. Flipping the newspaper pages again, he let out a sigh. There was no reason to keep denying it. He would need to leave the sponsored work of the hatchery and go to the middle. Everything in the upper wanted a team of griffins, or was so snooty that he'd end up dealing with a noble brat like the one from earlier that day. making sure his bottle pack was tight on his back. Windbreaker scrunched up the newspaper into his saddlebag. He wasn't sure what he'd be doing for an alchemist, as he had no knowledge of mixing stuff together, and most ponies had small rooms, so a griffin wouldn't be the best. He tilted his head as he heard a thud outside the wall and frowned. It was far too early for the booze to be served, or a pony to be that drunk. What I am is a decent pony. The voice was familiar, and for some reason his throat felt rough all of a sudden. What kind of colt threatens a helpless nymph with a bunch of ponies to back him up? Okay, that didn't sound right. Sticking his head out of the window and looking down, he saw a dirty-looking stallion glaring at the mare he had saved this morning, with a changeling directly beneath his window. The kind that doesn't like nosy ponies mouthing off, the stallion snapped, holding a pocket knife with his dirty grey magic. Now get out of my way, or else, because there's only one of you and a whole lot more of me and my ponies. So be a buggy lover somewhere else and let us do some work to make them goddess proud. Windbreaker had had enough at this point, shoving himself out of the window and flying down to join the mare. Count again, idiot! He glared at Knifehead, cracking his talons as he prepared to get into another fight. And for the record, I don't care about changelings, but like her, I have actual morals. That's what all buggy lovers say, the stallion growled, swiping the air with his knife. Now tell your damn mare to mind her own business. She's not my mare friend, Windbreaker said, hearing a pony run up behind him. Sneaking a glance, he saw the same noble brat from this afternoon running into the scene. That's him. Page, what's going on? The noble brat asked, glaring at him, and then at Knifehead, or whatever his name was, and the gang behind him, before standing next to the mare's side. None of yours or anyone's business, the other stallion hollered, bringing the knife close to the Nox's face to try and scare him. To his credit, the fat pony didn't even flinch, only deepening his glare. Now tell your buggy-loving mare to get the fuck... I said that one. Away, or this changeling won't be the only thing that gets cut up tonight, if you understand me. Both the changeling on the ground and the mare next to him gasped, with Windbreaker almost able to feel the sheer rage emanating from the Nox pony. Speaking in a very strained voice and drawing his blade, the pony said, "For saying that about Page Turner, I'll carve your talent emblem out of your sides, you swine!" Laughing to himself, the unicorn spat in their direction, running his pocket knife against the sword in the Nox's wing. "Like I told her, we outnumber you, and I've got magic, you broken Pegasus!" Briefly widening his eyes at the fact that this idiot was actually going down that road when some of his followers were Nox ponies, Windbreaker was about to toss a near-empty bottle when a series of thuds sounded behind him. "That's what you think, Mr. Racy," a very familiar voice sang out, causing Windbreaker to clench his talons, as the Minotaur he'd met before had literally jumped out of the window. "And take it from a comedy master such as myself, you are the kind of sad funny that needs a good bopping." The Minotaur, Vix-Lei, if he recalled correctly, said, while spinning her hammer. "Let the mare go, and I'll only smack ya a little." "As much as I dislike the Minotaur, I dislike your beliefs far more," a diamond dog said, as he appeared now, dragging his claws down the side of the building to get him on the floor. For some reason, he didn't have a collar on. As far as he knew, no diamond dog would leave their collar behind, as it was their way to tell who belonged in what pack. The diamond dog reached into his pockets and started pulling out glass bottles. "What they said, you creepy dank," another voice chimed in, as an Xvital of all things slammed into the ground, holding a knife in her tail hand, with knuckle-busters on her other hands. And now it seems the numbers are a bit more even. Part 5. Vix-Lei. Vix-Lei was so done with Equestria. Not a single pony knew how to have fun. Well, none of the adults. The kids seemed to have good heads on their shoulders, with their parents whining about her being a pest, and the guards complaining that she didn't have the proper papers. Who needed papers to juggle stuff, or do a bit? How could any tar put a limit on what was good comedy and tell her to get lost? Only the equestrians could be that dull, just like the tars back home. Well, enough of that mopey garbage. Time to head out and blaze a brand new None of yours or anyone's business! Someone screamed, startling her, something wicked. Looking outside to the festival she was ignoring for being lame, she saw that there was some sort of rumble going on outside. Now, while something told her that Loudy McLoudmouth wasn't the most honest customer, she also spotted that grouchy griffin with a unicorn mare and a bat pony standing beside him. If only there was some way to tell who the good guy was and who the bad. Now tell your buggy-loving mare to get away from this changeling, or this changeling won't be the only thing that gets cut up tonight, if you understand me. Well, that did it. Reaching for Senor Hardhead, Vix-Lei was musing on how best to make an entrance. For saying that about Page Turner, I'll carve your talent emblem out of your sides, you swine. Wow, that bat is a bit batty for that mare, she chuckled to herself, watching the pony of the night pull out his sword. McLoudmouth spat in the trio's direction, bringing his small little knife against the sword. Like I told her, we outnumber you, and I've got magic, you broken Pegasus. Well, she'd put it off for long enough, and she doubted she'd get a better opening than that. That's what you think, Mr. Racy, she called out, jumping out of the window while remembering to brace her landing. Spinning her hammer, she said, and take it from a comedy master such as myself, you are the kind of sad funny that needs a good bopping. Looking to see the cowering changeling, she was certain she made the right call of who was the good guy and who the baddies were. Let the mare go, and I'll only smack ya a little. As much as I dislike the Minotaur, I dislike your beliefs far more. Startled by the sudden voice, Vix-Lei pulled back in surprise as Rexy dropped down beside her, using his claws to get down onto the ground. Rexy then reached into his pockets and pulled out some neat-looking bottles. What they said, you creepy dink, a female voice called out, as one of those jungle cats joined them on the ground, holding a knife with her tail and iron punchers on her other hands. And now it seems the numbers are a bit more even. So either go back to your mommies or get ready for some macho butt-kicking, eh guys? She flashed a grin at the big jungle cat, who gave her a funny look before face-palming and muttering something under her breath. Yes, she is, good madam, Rexy said with an annoyed grunt, and you just met her. Shaking his head, the doggy turned to look at McLoudmouth. Now, good sir, and I say good sir out of habit only, perform a smart activity and walk away. I don't need any advice from a dumb mutt, the stallion shouted, practically throwing his knife at Rexy, while the rest of his gang following behind him, as they went against Vix-Lei and the rest of the tars around her. Finally, things were getting interesting, Vix-Lei thought to herself, as she leapt to smack a rather large earth pony. Part 5. Rex. Rex frowned as he heard some commotion out of his window, with some bigotry being tossed around. Recalling why he had departed the Under and chosen to reside in the Middle, to be a good person and at ease with the decisions in his life. From what he heard, there was a changeling nymph in need due to some intolerant pony taking advantage of the so-called honor festival to act upon his immoral views, although by the contents of what this sharp point was saying, he seemed to have an issue with everything. No matter, it was high time for him to join the fray, as it were, and do what— "That's what you think, Mr. Racy," The Minotaur he had met earlier called out as she vacated the room next to his, an unexpected surprise that he was glad he'd only learned of now. Brandishing her hammer, she continued to say, "And take it from a comedy master such as myself, you are the kind of sad funny that needs a good bopping." Well, that was a gross inflation of ego, if he had ever heard it. "Let the mare go, and I'll only smack ye a little." Well, he had stalled long enough, Rex mused to himself, using his durable claws to act as a means to lower himself down to the street via the side of the inn. Speaking clearly to the bigoted ingrate, he informed him, as well as the griffin, Noxpony, and unicorn, and the minotaur. "As much as I dislike the minotaur, I dislike your beliefs far more." He reached into his vest's pocket and retrieved some of his more potent concoctions. "What they said, you creepy dank," another potential ally added as they jumped down, revealing themselves to be from the Quan Mitzel kingdom. She seemed to be properly armed with a short blade and brass knuckles, and now it seems the numbers are a bit more even. Hopefully Sharp Point would decide this wasn't worth the effort, and so either go back to your mommies or get ready for some macho butt-kicking. Eh, guys? Vix-Lei flashed a grin at the Owie-Zodel. Said Owie-Zodel gave her an odd look before face-palming, muttering, "Ay, Dios mío, no otra de esa gente." "Yes, she is, good madam," Rex replied ruefully, shaking his head as he continued to say, "and you just met her." Returning his attention to the stallion, he said, "Now, good sir, and I say good sir out of habit only, perform a smart activity and walk away." "I don't need any advice from a dumb mutt," Sharp Point all but bellowed, throwing his switchblade at him, with his magic propelling it faster. Bringing his fists up to block it, he was nearly barreled over by Vix-Lei rushing ahead to knock a towering earth pony to the side with her hammer. Tumbling to the side, he had to roll to the side as a yellow unicorn mare snapped a shield around the nymph as a Pegasus tried to do a dive with a lead pipe. It vanished as the Nox pony flew in front of her, fending off a swish of Sharp Point's knife. The Griffin and Owie-Zodel both tried to go for the same foe, causing a massive pile-up, with his two allies managing to disengage before their bat pony with a board that had a very large nail in the wood smashed the weapon down where they were. Bringing himself back to the fight at paw, he threw a bottle that would cause some irritation on contact at an opposing foe when he was forced to abandon a muscle-relaxant potion on the ground to lob a punch in the gut of a running earth pony. It was then, as the bottle was broken by the staggering earth pony he knocked backwards, that he made a mistake and grabbed a smoke bomb instead. With everyone coughing, Rex was faintly aware of more approaching individuals, although he wasn't sure if they were friend or foe. I think I may have gotten the part number wrong last time, but this next one is part 7. Vital again. It was late by the time she got to the inn she had rented a room from, doing her best to edge away from the pre-celebration drunks, as well as those who wanted to get their photo taken with her. Beside being a major pain in her tail, it would also be a trail for anyone to find her. She hadn't gotten this far in life by acting dumb, beyond the few incidents, and when she had acted without putting herself first, it usually served to teach an important lesson. Like knowing when to fold in a con, and how not to get too involved with others. Painful lessons, but important lessons for a con artist nonetheless. Checking into the inn, some dump named Carousel Boutique, owned by some minor noble family, Vital opened the door to her room and let out a tiny purr at seeing the comfy-looking bed. She was all ready to toss her stuff in the corner and hop onto the bed to enjoy some well-deserved sleep when she heard something outside her window. Sorry. Opening it told her enough. Some stallion had some deep changeling desires that he was doing his best to hide by being overly over the top in his threats against the Ling, and the unicorn mare that had come to try and stop the fight. Blinking in surprise as a griffin came to join the love-hate whatever was going on, And then that Nightblade fellow she had run into appeared on the scene. She was debating to herself whether or not to join in when she remembered the most important rule in her life, to know that rules were meant for breaking, and she had to go help out. Putting on her brass knuckles and knife, she filed away that a Minotaur and a Diamond what a Minotaur and a Diamond Dog said as they both jumped down, with the latter being a far better talker than she'd imagined of his kind. As Vittel had nothing better to add to the conversation, all she said when she jumped down was, "What they said, you creepy dink." She allowed herself a smile, flexing her muscles as she eyed the jerk. And now it seems the numbers are a bit more even. It didn't seem that much of a threat. Hopefully, puffing out their chests would calm things down. So either go back to your mommies or get ready for some macho butt-kicking, eh, guys? The Minotaur then flashed a grin at her. No way, this tar actually... Vittel stopped that train of thought. Face-palming, she lapsed back into Buroniso, saying, "Oh my god, not another one of those people." "Yes, she is, good madam," the Diamond Dog said to her, "actually understanding Buroniso. And you just met her." He then turned to the stallion, holding the knife in the air. "Now, good sir, and I say good sir out of habit only, perform a smart activity and walk away." Being backed into a corner did it for the stallion, snapping off with a "I don't need any advice from a dumb mutt," before lunging to attack. And, as much as she hated to admit it, the idiot had it against her. His gang, as pitiful as it was, had fought together in the past, and her newfound allies... Grumbling as she and the griffin went after the same target, she pushed apart in time to avoid some crazy mare with a nail in a board. Throwing a punch that connected with the mare with the board, she peered around for her next target when there was a sudden blast of blinding smoke. Coughing into her hand as she got low, Vittel tried to get her vision back when she heard the sound of a lot of ponies approaching at once. As soon as it came, the smoke was gone, with a number of police looking at them, and the stallion, his gang, and the changeling had all proven smarter than her, and run off as soon as there was smoke. The police were all shouting at them to stand down and not to move. This wasn't according to her plan, but she could adapt. "As I told you, good sirs," Nightblade said to the police officer for the fourth time, "we were all responding to an individual in need. And I told you, Mr. Blade, as it was a changeling, we don't know if this was some elaborate plot or con job," the police pony said, rolling his eyes. "What we do know is that you and those in the cell were involved in some kind of fight, and as such, you and them will need to meet the judge in a few days." "Fine, fine," Knight grumbled for all of them, with the Griffin, Diamond Dog, Minotaur, and Unicorn watching the exchange with her carefully. They'd all been questioned, and it was only when Knight had revealed his roots that the cops were actually loosening up on them. "Allow me to pay for the mares and my bond, then, at the very least." Vittel shared the angry look on the Griffin's face, with the Minotaur muttering to herself, the Diamond Dog shaking his head, and the mare face-hooving. "No, it is far too late for that, and due to this being a joint fight, the only way I'd release all of them is under your view, Mr. Blade," the cop said with a bit of a grin, no doubt enjoying the opportunity to mess with a noble. "That means you will be responsible for them, Mr. Blade." "I fully understood what you meant," the colt snapped, risking the cop's wrath. Which proved to be tempered enough that the cop just pushed him back into the cell before leaving them alone. "Thanks for looking out for all of us," the Griffin sneered at the colt, wasting no time to get into his face. "I owe you nothing, you drunk," he said, with the same amount of venom. "In any case, you owe me for saving your plot this afternoon." How is getting me fired helpful? The Griffin shouted, with the Diamond Dog barking at him to lower his voice lest the cops get further annoyed at them. If the inspector saw you were drunk, the fines your associate got would have been pocket change compared to yours, Blade snapped back, causing the Griffin to blink before scowling off to the side. Look, it's late. I think it would do us some good to get some sleep, the mayor said, walking to the middle of the room, shooting a look at the Bat Pony, which seemed to calm him down. The pretty mare is right, guys, the Minotaur said, a bit too cheerfully for Vital's taste, but at least her heart was in. The name is Vix-Lei. Seeing as we'll be spending some time together, I think it'd be best if we'd swap names. Oh, right. That was a thing she would have to deal with now. That and a court appearance. Wonderful. It seemed that the Diamond Dog and Griffin shared her feelings on the matter, but the mayor just smiled. Sounds like a wonderful idea, Vix-Lei. My name is Page Turner, and this is my colt friend, Nightblade. She tilted her head towards the Bat Pony, who gave a half-hearted attempt at a smile. Turning to face the Griffin, she said, I know your name is Windbreaker, yes? The reddish Griffin nodded his head in agreement, saying, Yup, that's right. A bit surprised you remembered me, to be honest. And yes, I've heard all the jokes, so please don't start. He moved his eyes away from a pouting Vix-Lei to face the Diamond Dog next to him. And your name? My name is Rex, my good sir, the Diamond Dog said, holding out his paw to shake the talon of the Griffin, before going to do it for everyone in the cell. While it is not the most ideal place to meet new people, it is good to know that there are like-minded people when it comes to how others are treated. He flashed a smirk at her, which made the Xvital feel a bit better about everything. Care to finish off the introductions, ma'am? I'm Vital, everyone, she said, flashing an easy smile as she leaned backwards, trying to get more comfortable. She wasn't sure why, but she had a feeling that tomorrow was going to be a good day. Alright, I've got a few things to say about this chapter. Let's see. I recognized, oh my god, from lots of Spanish people saying it. Adios mio, I recognize that one. Not a huge fan of it being used in such context, but I am aware that it is. We got everyone together finally. I love their first fight. It reminds me of the first time the Order of the Stick fought with each other. They dealt themselves more damage than the enemy. All of these people here, these 6 people, were capable fighters in their own right, in some manner. But not a single one of them was used to being a team player. That is very important. If you can't work together, you'll get in each other's way as much as help. Let's see, what else was there? I was expecting something a little different, but I like this introduction. Here's where they... Terribly sorry about that. Knocked my headphones loose. All the characters have finally met. Most of them had already met a little before this, but now they're going to be stuck together for a while. Here's our beginning. This is when the party finally meets each other. Whether to call this the last of the introduction, or the last chapter, whichever, but now the story has truly begun. We're going off. We're going to see what happens next. I'm looking forward to it. This is My Name is R, signing off once again. I hope you all enjoy it. I'll see you again tomorrow.